All right, getting going on number 18 here. So now we have the cosecant of 300. Remember, cosecant is the same thing as 1 over sine. So it's the same thing as 1 over sine of 300. So we go here on our unit circle, and we go around 300 degrees, right? And then we find what is that terminal point, and it's 1/2 negative radical 3 over 2. Remember, that's cosine sine, and we want the sine. So we have negative radical 3 over 2 on the bottom, right? We're just replacing that up there. And then all we have to do is simplify. So that fraction gets flipped, and we have negative 2 over radical 3. So pretty straightforward. Again, just changing it into something that we know, sine or cosine, and then looking on our unit circle, and then going from there, using that terminal point. All right. So 21, very similar thing, right? But in this case, we have to find a coterminal angle, okay? Because 570 is more than 360, so we can't find where that is on our unit circle, right? So I take away 360 from it, I'm taking away like a whole, a whole way around, and I kind of show how these are the same here. So that would be 360 there, and then going another round, and it'd be like right there, right? So that'd be 570 degrees. Well, that's the exact same thing as just going 210 degrees, right? So we just go ahead, and this way we can use our unit circle, right? So they're the exact same angle, so we go ahead and use 210 degrees, and then we can look on our unit circle. So that's what we do, right? So we look on our unit circle, and we see that the terminal point there is negative 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. Well, we want the cosine, right? We want the cosine of that. So the cosine of 570 is the same thing as the cosine of 210, and that is negative radical 3 over 2. Okay. All right, so we're seeing this pattern, right? There's kind of like a step-by-step process to doing these problems, right? So I'll go ahead and kind of put it in steps here for you. Step number 1. What do we need to do? We need to rewrite it, right? We need to rewrite things into either like sine or cosine, things that we know, in terms of sine or cosine. Okay. And the second step, possibly we might have to, oh, nice, I forgot my L. Possibly we'll have to find a coterminal angle, right? We'll have to find something that is pretty much the exact same angle, but is between 0 and 360, so we can use our unit circle. So possibly find a coterminal angle, right? That way we can use our unit circle. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and for that last one, we'll just use our unit circle, right? So we're going to use our unit circle, look up whatever that angle is, okay? So we use the unit circle to solve, right? We look up whatever that angle is, we find the terminal point, which is the cosine sine point, right? And we can use those two values. Usually it's like radical 3 over 2, or radical 2 over 2, or 1 over 2, something along those lines. All right, not too bad. Pretty easy stuff there. All right, so moving on to number 37. For 37, they want us to find the quadrant that each theta lies in, right? Well, we know that it goes sine, cosine, and everything up in this quadrant, we have the x and y, right? Because everything is positive for the x values and positive for y values up in this quadrant. And then we get over here and x's turn negative, etc. So these are all the sine values for the different things here on the different quadrants, right? All right, so they want sine to be less than 0. Well, if it's less than 0, then it's negative, right? They also want cosine to be less than 0. Well, then that's negative as well. So that means both sine and cosine are negative, so it has to be in that third quadrant there. So I'll go through and label all of these, right? That last one's the fourth, that's the first, and here's the second quadrant. Okay. So for number 38, it's very similar, right? We have the tangent has to be less than 0. Well, what is tangent, right? Tangent is the same thing as sine over cosine. We learned that before. So we know that the sine over the cosine has to be less than 0. Well, if that's the case, then that means that what? Either sine has to be negative or cosine has to be negative. If they're both negative, if sine and cosine are both negative, then we have a negative divided by a negative, which is actually a positive. And if they're both positive, same thing, comes out to be positive. So one of those two has to be negative, okay? So this is a good hint, right? We're well on our way. Now we use the other hint they gave us. They said sine has to be less than 0. Oh, there you go. There we go. Sine has to be negative, right? So if sine has to be negative, and we said only one of those can be negative from before with that tangent restriction, then if sine is the negative one, cosine has to be positive in order for this whole thing to be less than 0, right? Okay. So if sine is negative and cosine is positive, what quadrant is that? Well, that's the fourth, right? Cosine positive, sine negative, boom. And don't forget, remember, cosine, sine up there at the top. All right, good deal.